The creation of Shoebot was no easy task. With a goal of tying shoes in mind and a dream, I started creating a plan. The first part in creating a robot that ties shoes is knowing how to tie a shoe. A very different technique had to be utilized, one that utilized the least different directions of motion. After many hours of testing, this lace tying technique proved to be one plausible that a robot could perform. I then went on to develop two plans that used linear actuators and motors to create 3 dimensions of movement. These plans seemed very difficult, until one night the greatest idea dawned on me. Mechanical arms that create a dimension of movement through rotation. The points of motion starting from the top are the claw, elbow, shoulder, and waist. From here I got the necessary materials. MDF panel, which proved to be lightweight and strong, great for my purposes, and servo motors, which can rotate a certain number of degrees when inputted. These servo motors can be connected to the Arduino I purchased in Assignment 1. Unfortunately, Amazon lost my servos, but fortunately, through the Australian company and maker store, I was able to order and get them delivered in a matter of days. Using the MDF panel, I sketched the parts to be cut out. MDF is great as it was easy to hand cut small specific parts necessary for Shoebot. It is at the claw when my first mistake took place. I forgot to consider that the servo would stick out of the claw to such an extent it wouldn't be able to grab the lace. With a bit of thinking, I came up with a new design for the claws that worked excellently. Cutting out a segment of the elbow, I was able to slot in the claw perfectly and secure it with a bit of glue, creating the elbow-to-claw attachment. When tested, the claw worked great and I was ecstatic with such a great start to the assignment. With all the pieces sawed out and holes cut into them, I slotted in the servos and secured them in place with screws. I also screwed in their respective slots so that the servos on one segment could connect to another segment. When testing the claw, elbow, and shoulder, I ran into my strangest issue. A strange loop occurred, whilst a loop was impossible in my code. It turned out that when you enter an input, you must change the setting to create a new line, or there is an infinite input. Once solved, the arm was working great. The largest issue in the physical creation of Shoebot was that of the shoulder. As the shoulder was not inserted into a segment, I needed to create its own casing. In doing this, the wood kept splitting and it took me hours of careful trying until I finally got it. What made it worse is that I had to do it twice. With the shoulder complete, the arms were finished, and it was time to create a base for the arms to fit into. In creating the base, I ran into a problem with using the MDF panel. As the panel was too thin, I couldn't screw into it, so I would have to use hot glue, but I don't own a hot glue gun. Whilst I waited to borrow one, I had to start programming, so I lifted the base with books, wired everything up, and got to work. The progress went quite well, and I got the arms capable of scooping up the lace ready for further action. Finally, with access to a glue gun, I decided to paint the base and glue it together. I had intended to make the base grey and arms black, but I accidentally bought silver paint. Luckily, this still looked good, and I was happy with Shoebot's look altogether. With further programming, I was able to get the arms to grab the laces and make bunny ears, but I noticed the arms kept hitting the shoe, so I had to further cut the already painted arms and touched up with paint. Finally, after a lot of coding, Shoebot was working. Sadly, I was unable to get Shoebot to make a perfect knot, as I was unable to completely tighten the laces, but with a quick pull of the laces, a perfect knot could be formed. Shoebot also lacked some consistency, as the laces would sometimes catch on the wood, but ultimately, I believe Shoebot is still a masterpiece, and I cannot believe I was actually able to make it. Thank you for watching.